are now locked in and listening to The Issue.
This guy is a franchise quarterback, and no, I don't want to hear any pushback on that.
It feels like a top 10 roster to me. It feels like it can win a championship.
This is The Issue.
Yo, what's up? We're back. It's The Issue, Thursday, July 27th, and we have another episode here for you today. It's going to be a really good one. I mean, they just get better and better every single week as we get closer to the NFL season. Another packed show. I mean, we have so much to talk about, we can't even get to everything. We are in the middle of our divisional predictions now. I mean, this is going to be the fourth division. So, obviously 4 remaining after this week.
Some would call that halfway.
So it is a halfway point in our predictions, and they have been fantastic and received very well by all the viewers on YouTube, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that stuff. Everybody's been listening, and it's been great here on the show.
Or sometimes not received well, but we still appreciate the comments.
Right.
Either way. What's the bowling guy say? I feel like we say this about like 4 or 5 times a year on the show. Whether you love me or you hate me,
you're gonna watch.
Still tuning in to watch.
You're gonna watch.
That bowling guy said that, the one that's the who are you, what am I, or something like that. You know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about.
Everybody knows what I'm talking about. Everybody knows that video.
Either way, people have been watching,
of course.
And that shouldn't change. This show is very good. We're gonna start out with Tim's rant on first round quarterbacks. I know you said you have a pretty good one this week, so excited to get into that. We will have hits and misses like we normally do to round out the first segment there. Into the second. That's where the AFC North predictions are going to be. So hometown Steelers get a little Bengals and Joe Burrow, a little Lamar Jackson and Baltimore and Deshaun and Cleveland, what that whole tire fire could turn into this year. And then we're going to have the AFC North superlatives to finish out the second segment. And then the third segment, home to the news. And a conversation about Saquon Barkley and his contract. Everything has been swirling with running back contracts in the league. We talked about it a little bit last week. Of course, Saquon now signs his deal.
Have we ever
$11 million.
Have we ever talked about running backs more than in the past 3 weeks?
No, I think they really bought themselves some airtime, if anything else.
For sure.
Even if the contracts aren't moving and changing all that much. But we'll get to that to finish out the show. But guys, we appreciate you being here with us today. You can catch us on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Prime Video to watch the show, and then you can listen to the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Amazon Music, among others, like iTunes. So no matter how you're here, thank you for being here.
Yeah, we certainly appreciate it. Make sure you also go check out, we got a big drop coming August 1st, right?
Next week.
Next Monday, yeah.
Yeah, Tuesday, yeah.
It's the Players Only podcast.
Yes.
Okay, I don't think we're not breaking any ground on the name. We announced that, right? You'll see who the guest is. It should be very, very interesting. I would recommend you go subscribe there. We will post the first episode on the issue as well, but eventually send your traffic over to that way, over that channel as well.
Yeah.
Before I get into my rant, I do want to say, thoughts, condolences out to the LeBron James family. With Bronny collapsing at practice, scary situation, similar to the DeMar Hamlin is kind of what it feels like.
Yeah.
Although it wasn't nationally televised, which I guess is good in a sense for them. But either way, thoughts, prayers, all that good stuff out to them.
Absolutely.
So I want to get that out of the way. Now my rant here. So quarterback season 2. They released who they're going to be following, right? The Netflix series. They're going to be following Josh Allen, Kenny Pickett, Justin Herbert, right? First impression, I like the mix. I think Josh is a little bit more outgoing, a little bit more vocal. Kenny's a little bit more of a young, budding player who's still struggling week in and week out to prove himself and solidify his spot in the league. You have Justin Herbert, who's very quiet, reserved, doesn't like a ton of camera time, doesn't like a ton of publicity. But one thing did stand out. I've been thinking about this for longer than just seeing this release. Talking about young quarterbacks, especially like a Daniel Jones, Kenny Pickett, right? Younger, kind of on that fringe where it's like, are we going to buy into them? So obviously Kenny's younger, has a longer runway. Daniel Jones signed, but nobody really believes that's a good deal. They're kind of banking on the late rise of Daniel Jones, like that second pop in the contract here. So I thought, how many first-round quarterbacks have popped later than year 3? Right? I think year 3 is a good benchmark. Right? The game has changed mightily over the last 10 years. So we'll go back 10 years and let's look who are the first-round quarterbacks over the last 10 years. Here's the list. 2013, we've got E.J. Manuel. You guys can see it on your screen, by the way. Blake Bortles, Teddy Bridgewater, Johnny Manziel in 2014. Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota in 2015. You have Goff, Wentz, and Paxton Lynch in 16. In 17, you have it's a pretty good first round, Deshaun, Patrick, and Mitch Trubisky. 2018, you have the Baker, Rosen, Darnold, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen draft class. 2019, Kyler, Daniel Jones, Dwayne Haskins. 2020 is Burrow, Herbert, Tua, and Jordan Love, of course. 2021, the loaded, was supposed to be loaded, big draft class, Lawrence, Wilson, Fields, Lance, and Mac Jones. And then, of course, Kenny Pickett, 2022. We haven't seen the 2023 class yet, so we'll leave them out. You start to, that's the overall look. Who out of those guys have had some form of success? I'm talking been able to roughly, stay in the league, a couple of different spots they've been able to start, been more than serviceable, right? And you look, it's a decent amount, right? But we'll narrow that down even further. So you got like Blake Bortles, Teddy Bridgewater, right? Like, you don't kid yourself in Blake Bortles. The man started an AFC Championship game. Like, he has his flaws, and he only had a couple of good years, but the man started an AFC Championship game and played well. Teddy Bridgewater, again, don't kid yourself, right? You started for a while. If it wasn't for once in a 15-year knee injury, Teddy Bridgewater would probably still be a starting caliber quarterback. Jameis and Marcus, again, they've been somewhat successful, been able to start multiple places, have had other opportunities, have had very, very good seasons, Pro Bowl caliber seasons. Obviously, Goff and Wentz, say what you want about Wentz, but he's still a very, very good quarterback. Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, Daniel Jones. Again, Daniel Jones been able to start. He's won a playoff game. I got to give him that. Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Tua, Trevor Lawrence, and Mac Jones. Don't kid yourself on Mac Jones. The man was a Pro Bowl level quarterback, right? Those are the guys who have had, and I'll say, quote, some level of success, right? Like, I don't think Daniel Jones has been overall successful for where he was drafted. He was 6th overall. He's getting paid $40-something million. Do I think he's successful? No. But in the grand scheme of things, he's won a playoff game. He's been a perennial starter, right? More than a lot of people can say in this league. I think a lot of those guys were more of a product of their environment, though. So let's narrow it down even further, right? Let's look at the guys who are, say, I absolutely have to have them on my team. Can't miss them, right? Well, then you get pretty narrow here, right? Let's look. Deshaun Watson. First couple of years, he's winning divisions with him and DeAndre Hopkins, basically. That's about all he had. Winning divisions, competing in playoff games, winning playoff games. How about Patrick Mahomes? First year to starter, MVP. Lamar takes over week 9. Whoa, he's fast. First year, the next year after that one, first year full starting, MVP. Kyler Murray, now again, injuries, size, maturity issues, yes. Fast, can run, can throw a deep ball. Instantly you can say, whoa, he's different. Joe Burrow, yeah, he gets hurt his first year, but still looks fantastic. First full year starting, Super Bowl appearance. Justin Herbert, hey man, you got 5 minutes. They punctured Tyrod Taylor's lung. Oh, by the way, you have to go against the Chiefs. 5 minutes. You have 5 minutes to get ready. Are you ready? Yeah, it's no problem. Stud. Trevor Lawrence, hey, I know that Urban Meyer sucks. We'll call it a wash that year. First year of the real coach, gets to the playoffs, wins a playoff game, down from 27 down? Stud. Right? This idea that the first round talents take a ton of time, it's absolutely nonsense. Right? Look at some of the guys that you'd say, oh, they need some more time. You find yourself with a list of Mitch Trubisky and Daniel Jones and Josh Rosen, E.J. Manuel, Sam Darnold, Jordan Love, Trey Lance. I'd even throw Justin Fields in there. Again, say what you want, he's 5-20. He's 5-20. You cannot convince me at this point in his career he's not a bust. Is he entertaining? Absolutely. Does he have talent? For sure. He's 5-20. I'm sorry, Jordan Love. I'm out. I've seen enough. The reality is that a first-round quarterback, if you start, you need to be able to play by Thanksgiving year next year. It's just the reality of the situation. So looping back around to the AFC North, we're going to get to that in the second segment. I think you're going to know by Thanksgiving, maybe a little bit later, can Kenny Pickett play? I'll give him to week 10 or 11. Can Kenny Pickett play? 4-year starter in the same building, same practice facility, same city. We're it's go time, but this is the time to go. And I'm not saying I doubt him, or I'm not saying oh, massive pressure on Kenny Pickett, but by week 10 or 11, we have to have something where it's okay, I'll take a flyer on another year. Or, even better, that's our guy. We have to know by Thanksgiving, are we rolling with him? Is it unfair? Maybe. But is it also reality? Absolutely. History will tell you that right there. That's the reality of first-round quarterbacks. We got to know before year 3. Most likely, even in the middle of year 2. It's just the reality of the situation. That's how it rolls.
Yeah, 100% agree there. And I think, if anything, this also points to the fact of, how hard it is to draft your guy as, like, from the GM ownership perspective in the league. Like, you read that list of first-round quarterbacks. How many of them have been busts? Like, that list shrinks significantly when you
We got time, let's go look.
When you look at all of the quarterbacks that were drafted in the first round, and then you go down the list and kind of, like, pull out the guys that have, like, really popped and been good, that list shrinks quick.
I would say outright bust. E.J. Manuel, Johnny Manziel, Paxton Lynch, Mitch Trubisky, Josh Rosen, Sam Darnold, Dwayne Haskins. I'm not ready to call Jordan Love a bust yet. He hasn't even had a full year starting.
Right.
Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, and right now I'd put Justin Fields in that.
Yeah.
And that's 10 guys in 10 years. That's a bust a year.
And, like, I'm not going to say Blake Bortles was a bust. Like, that's a whole different category you could get into. But, like, he's still not the guy. Like, he's not your franchise guy, but you spent a first-round pick on him.
Right, and you could even look at those guys, right? Blake Bortles, Teddy Bridgewater, Jameis, Marcus. I wouldn't put Goff and Wentz in that category. I think they're very, very high-end starters.
Yeah.
Like, I guess above-average starters. You could put Daniel Jones in there. Kyler Murray is in that category. Mac Jones. Like, those are all guys where it's like, we'd take a call. We'd listen to you.
Yeah.
Like, we'd move off of them tomorrow if we got the right offer. We'd draft a guy if there was a guy there.
It's very interesting. Very interesting. Guys, let's get into some hits and misses.
So hit number one, we've been saying this for a while. I feel like this has been a hit like 3, 4, I don't even know how many times at this point. But we've been saying baseball needs to get interesting. What do you know? The Savannah Bananas. And by the way, they're like at 500. Like, they're getting beat just about the same amount of times they're winning against, like, the party animals, whoever they're playing against, like other semi-pro level players, right? So it's not even that they're that successful, but they've had their best ratings ever, right? People want interesting. I don't think it's a coincidence that the MLB has had their, I guess maybe not best, but they are up significantly from the last 5 years, which have been on a decline for even longer than that, I think. Fans are telling you, speed it up, make it fun, add interesting things. Now, I'm not saying the MLB should turn into banana ball. I'm not saying we should have guys on stilts, but I'm thinking spice it up, have some fun, do a performance before the game, whether that's, whatever the case is. Like, make it interesting. Make it an event to go to the ballpark. Make it so you don't want to miss that game on TV, right? Like, people are telling you this is what's working. Trust the consumer.
Right. And even if it's not as far as, like, you don't need your starting pitcher twerking on the mound before he throws the ball. But, like, look what the NFL is doing with, like, alternate helmets and spicing things up in that way.
I like the City Connect uniforms. I think that helps.
City Connect, that's a step in the right direction.
Miking players up. I think we talked about this with the PGA Tour.
Awesome.
I think miking players up. I'm not saying, like, where they can talk back and forth like the All-Star games. That way you're not, like, distracting them.
Right.
But mic them up. I don't think it'd be crazy.
And then you look at something like Quarterback, the Netflix documentary, right? That whole TV series. You could do something like that for baseball, too. I think it's so interesting. Like, when they had a mic on Patrick Mahomes, like, the entire Super Bowl season that he had.
Insane.
Right? So, like, you were able to, like, go into his mind pretty much and figure out what he was thinking, what he was saying, how he was talking to the coaches, what he was saying to his offensive linemen, what he was saying to his receivers, like, play by play. And it's incredibly captivating. And baseball has the same aspect. So if you could throw a mic on somebody and listen back and kind of create content that way, I think it would help draw people in for sure.
Think about the amount of footage and editing and cutting.
Oh, God, dude, don't even talk to me about that.
That'd be brutal. All right, miss number one here. It's more of a very minor miss, but still is a miss nonetheless. We had Baltimore, then Cincinnati, the Steelers, and the Browns last year. We had Baltimore like 12-5. Cincy at 11-6. The Steelers at 9-8. Browns at 6-11. Right, weren't that far off. We had the Browns in the basement, Steelers in third. But at the end of the day, Baltimore let us down a little bit. Now, to be fair, Lamar got hurt, and Cincinnati rebounded a lot better than we expected, right? Teams coming off Super Bowl losses tend to take a step back. We thought they would. They stayed about the same, so we didn't expect that. But, I mean, hey, to be fair, Lamar got hurt, and when he did get hurt, they were the number one seed, not just in the AFC North, in the entire AFC at the time of his injury. So we would have been, I think we would have been right if he didn't get hurt. Tough to say, but either way we were wrong. Yeah,
I mean, injuries happen, but, like, at the end of the day, that's still going to affect the standings there. And it was, like you said, more of a correct division. I mean, it's not like we totally missed like we did on the NFC West. But
And it's not like it was
we
like
did have Baltimore
earth-shattering.
first.
It's like
Yeah.
it was like earth-shattering for Cincy to just go above Baltimore. I mean, it was a
look,
little
guys, look,
switcheroo.
it's tough to find misses here. You know, it just so happens you guys tune in to watch a very accurate and correct show. So, like, when we have to find misses, sometimes we have to nitpick a little bit.
That's true. Hit number 2 here. Adam Rank from NFL Network also has the Steelers splitting with Cincinnati, beating the Niners. A lot of similarities between both his predictions and ours. Again, we'll get to the predictions next segment. We have a slightly different record, but you'll see the kind of trajectory that we're taking here. And we're on the side of a lot of experts here. We're not going out on too big of an island, right? We have a lot of sources to back us up here, and Adam Rank is one of them.
Yeah, 100%. And I don't think, like, we've been talking about it. It's not a surprise that we have the Steelers beating the 49ers. I think we've mentioned it a couple of times over the past couple of months, right? And just to see that reflected on a program like an NFL Network, like a Fox Sports, right? It's going to add some validity to it. So, yeah, we got the Steelers beating the Niners.
Makes you feel good. Miss number 2 here. Ohtani's not traded yet. We are now approaching the August 1st deadline for the MLB trades. Indications are they won't trade him. They're only about 3 back, I think, right now of the second wildcard spot. I can see their reasoning for saying, hey, he's an all-time talent. We're going to try to run it with him. I get it. I just think when you not know, but you have a very, very good indication that, first of all, he wants to win, and you don't a lot, right? Like 10 years with Trout, he's got no playoff wins. So the indication that you don't win a lot, he wants to win, and you're not going to be able to outbid the other teams in the offseason. So I think you should get something for him. Again, I can see why you wouldn't want to trade an all-time talent like that. But again, indications are they won't trade him. I think they should. We're wrong there.
Yeah, and also just to kind of speak to that too, I agree that you need to get something for him, but at the same time, the argument for not trading him, too often I think people put a lot of emphasis on the career more so than the individual season, right? Like, statistically speaking, and I know Ohtani is great, but what are the chances that he has another season like this one, right? So if you're going to try to prolong that, like, let's just, like, enjoy the now. Let's try to get everything we can out of him this season. Yeah. And you're not going to be able to keep him, so I mean, look, if worst comes to worst and this is what you get and this is all you had with him, I think it's better to end it this way than go out with, we didn't have him for the last part of the season because we traded him.
I'm not going to say you're not right on that. I do think there's validity to what you're saying there, but for the Angels specifically, their farm system is absolute dog water.
It's garbage.
It's so bad.
Yeah.
So, like, there's a legitimate argument to say, okay, we like Ohtani, but we're not going to be able to keep him. Let's build around Trout, and let's go trade every asset, try to get assets for Trout in the next couple of years. I think there's a stronger argument for that, knowing how bad their farm system is, and knowing it's like, you didn't win without Ohtani, you're not winning with him. It's like, what's the point? He is having a historic season. You might sneak into the playoffs, but we don't view them as a contending team. So it's almost like a what's the point scenario. I don't know. I do see both sides, though.
Yeah, they're caught in a tough situation.
Yeah. Hit number 3 here. We knew that Saquon Barkley wouldn't sit out. $10 million is $10 million, man. You got to go get your money. And at the end of the day, like, I do think there were people in his camp, I would hope at least, and maybe that's what helped him wise up a little bit. Name me the running back that sat out and been successful. First of all, name me the running back that sat out. The only one I can come up with is Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah,
and we saw how that turned out. Right.
Not great.
It's like go find me the running back who sat out, made a big fuss, and came back and been successful and ended up getting their way the next year. Like, it doesn't really happen.
No.
He ends up signing for 1 year, $11 million, as opposed to the $10 million franchise tag. We'll talk a little bit about that in the third segment and what our opinions are there. But nonetheless, Saquon, I guess, finds his home for the year.
Yeah, I mean, good for the Giants. Giants fans wanted him, so there you go. You got him.
A little segue here, like, I guess, kind of little sidebar. See, the running backs had like a Zoom call. All the NFL running backs had a big Zoom call. Yes, they had a big video conference thing to discuss the market and what things they might be able to do about it. But at the end of the day, it's like, let me help you out, champ. There's nothing to do about it. You signed the CBA. Yeah. Right? Like, you voted people into your players association. Those people, much like our government, right? You vote for them. They vote. You also get a vote as a player, but like their votes count more in a sense, right? Like, you have representatives in the NFLPA. Then the NFLPA meets with the NFL. They agree on a CBA, the collective bargaining agreement. Like, I don't want to say like you did this to yourself, but like you did it to yourself. Like, your agents, your lawyers, your representation. Like,
yeah,
That's what got us here, right? It's under the CBA that this is how it works.
And right, in the ever-changing market that is the NFL.
This idea that they have nothing, they can't do anything about it. It's like, you could have, but you didn't. It's too late now.
Right, like we're talking like years in like
I think they signed the
years.
CBA like 2 years ago. So like you could have done something about it.
Yeah.
And this whole idea like, oh, like why doesn't, well, so he's on the franchise tag, he can still negotiate. No, you can't. You can't do anything longer than a 1-year deal. And that's what they ended up doing. Like, people are like, well, he'll end up going to get his money. He's got the leverage, and he'll hold out until they give him something that he wants long-term. It's like, no, you're missing the point. He physically can't get a long-term deal now. Like, there is a deadline. They didn't meet it. Now you can't do it.
You can only sign for a year.
Like, sorry, that's how it works. Again, CBA, you agreed on it. We'll talk a little bit about more about that in the third segment. Miss number 3 here. Towards the end of Big Ben's, like, I guess, reign, in a sense, in Pittsburgh here, there was this, like, stigma that maybe even I bought into every now and then, that he wasn't, like, good with the young guys, wasn't super, like, invested in their development. But after chatting with somebody close to him, and you guys will see that as well, it's just not true at all. It's all, like, media and I hate the term gaslighting, but, it's that, like...
clickbaity type stuff.
Yes, clickbait. That's a perfect term. Yes, exactly. And so... there's just not a ton of truth there, and I was wrong to think that a couple years ago.
Yeah, I think too often, especially like in these big leagues, you get reporters that are just so hungry to like release a story that they are willing to kind of just throw anybody under the bus.
Bend the truth a little bit.
Right, and like you said, everybody that watches this show, and you'll hear the news in the next week about. What you can go check out.
We're a fan of Ben.
We're a big fan of Ben over here.
Huge fan of Big Ben.
Here's been eating well too.
Absolutely. But either way, at the end of the day, he's a good guy. So that's the end of the first segment there, guys. Don't go anywhere. We're going to have the highly coveted and expected AFC North predictions, superlatives, and then again, we'll talk running backs and some more sports news in the third segment, guys. Thanks for stopping in. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. It's The Issue, second segment, the 27th of July, last July episode. August 1st, we have a big drop date for our other podcasts as well, and August will be a big month for us in general. We got the NFL technically starts in August, right? We got the Hall of Fame games, some preseason games. Regular season, of course, September 7th is that Thursday night game.
We're only like a month out.
September 10th is the first Sunday when me and Scott Hansen can rekindle our romantic relationship.
Oh, and it is romantic, I will tell you.
Can't wait. But thanks for stopping in, however you're listening, YouTube, Spotify, I don't know, whatever. I could list them all, but you already know what you're listening and watching on, so I appreciate you doing so. If you missed the first segment, we had a little bit of a rant on first-round quarterbacks, the kind of the hit rate there, hits and misses per usual, and now we will have our divisional predictions. We'll have the AFC North, and then we'll have the AFC North superlatives to follow. Third segment, we'll have some news, ton of news breaking, NFL, even some soccer. Oh, God. It's an interesting story with soccer, though. So, I don't know, you'll see.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the Saquon Barkley discussion to round out the show. So, we appreciate you guys stopping by.
It'll be a damn good one. And this is, like we always say, divisional predictions are our favorite time of the year. We kind of like...
we have the actual NFL season, but it's a close.
We have a lot of fun with, like, kind of predicting the records and going through it. It's always been a staple here on the show. And I would say this is our favorite division to predict, right? We're big Steeler fans, right? Yeah. You live in Pittsburgh, you live and breathe the Steelers. Now, we're realistic, but this year you'll see we have some high expectations for Kenny P and the Steelers. But yeah, without further ado, let's go. The AFC North divisional predictions start now.
So if you are new here, we always start at the bottom and go to the top. So we will, of course, start in the basement with the basement-dwelling Cleveland Browns.
And they always are down there.
They are very used to being down there, and I don't think this year is any different. I do like Stefanski, but I think as we get, as we see the growth of the division, I do believe he is the fourth best coach in the division. I don't think that's a huge knock on him. I think Zach Taylor is a budding young superstar of an offensive head coach.
Yeah.
What he's been able to do with Burrow and the acquiring of weapons and being able to integrate Mixon and Higgins, and Tyler Boyd doesn't even feel like a third receiver some nights, right? It's been a very, very good coaching job. Of course, you have Mike Tomlin and John Harbaugh, right? No, Jim Harbaugh.
John.
Sean?
Jim coaches for Michigan, yeah.
Dude, I'll always mess it up. Jays and whatever. Either way. So I think that's an issue with the Browns. I do think Deshaun Watson is going to be better, but the question is, what is the degree of better? We have no measuring stick in NFL history for somebody who has sat out a year and a half, 2 years, and come back and been fine, right? There's no history, there's no precedent for it. I don't see him coming back and being an MVP caliber quarterback, and I think that's what he needs to make this roster work. I think the defense is very, very weak. I think the offensive line is good, but starting to be on the decline from the road grading offensive line we saw from 3 years back when they had Baker. So I do think the Browns in a loaded division kind of, although they are talented, kind of get lost in the wash at 7-10.
I agree, and let's not lose our perspective on this. When you had Baker, you weren't paying him all that much, so you could surround him with all the pieces that you needed. And if Baker would have turned out to be a good franchise competent quarterback, he probably would still be working in this system. This team would still be very good, and they probably wouldn't be in the basement this year. But you paid a ton of guaranteed money to a Deshaun Watson, a ton. So now your offensive line declines.
$250 million.
Your run game is gonna decline.
No
just
Kareem
based
Hunt
off
this
of
year.
that.
No, I like Chubb, but we have no precedent for him being able to carry the load for the entire season just him.
By himself, right? So I mean, look, now they're stuck in a cap hell situation, paying their quarterback way too much. And that's just going to lead them right back to the basement of where they've always been. They actually had something going there for a while where it felt like, okay, maybe the Browns can get something going. Not anymore.
Not to mention they have the most overrated pass rusher in the game in Myles Garrett. All right, now in third place, the Baltimore Ravens. Now I do think they will be better. They'll be 10-7. They'll be a very, very competent, good football team. My concern is the health. I have yet to see Lamar be able to make it to the end of the season unscathed since his MVP season, and I don't think that ends now. I do think he will miss a couple games throughout the season, and I do think they will lose most of the games that he misses. I think OBJ is a great addition. Show me the seasons OBJ has been healthy. It's been since New York, right? There's no precedent for OBJ being healthy. Rashad Bateman's been injury riddled, right? The new guy, Zay Flowers, even in college, he dealt with a couple injuries, right? There is not a ton of reliable production here. If they're all healthy and producing, this is probably a 12-win team.
Yeah.
But I can't bank on injury-riddled players just all of a sudden having the most healthy years of their career all at the same time. Not to mention J.K. Dobbins gets hurt often. The offensive line's declining, right? There are pieces here that I can't rely on, but at the end of the day, I do think Lamar's going to be very, very productive for the games he plays. They do have good weapons. I like Mark Andrews a ton. Good coaching staff. Not as good defensively, but will still be serviceable with Roquan Smith. So, good team, lacks special. If, depending on injuries, they could be anywhere from a 7 to a 12-win team. I think 10 feels right.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like you said, this team gets hurt, and that's the truth about it. And I hope, just for football's sake, that Lamar can make it through the season, right? We're Steeler fans, but at the end of the day, I am a overall football fan. Having this show and being, unbiased and wanting the best product for television for the NFL.
I don't want to watch Tyler Huntley for 5 weeks.
I don't want to watch Tyler Huntley. I want to see Lamar, and I want to see the Ravens at their best because it just makes for a better experience overall. And I think this is a team that is very well constructed, and when everybody is healthy, they can fire on all cylinders, and they cover all their bases. When they have a great pass game and Lamar's able to run the football, that opens up lanes in for just normal rushing the football.
Yeah.
It's a very complete team, but they always get stopped a little bit short. But now there's other giants in the division, right? If Kenny Pickett pops, the Steelers are going to be really good. Right. And the Bengals are going to be good for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, that's a good segue with the Kenny Pickett thing, because that is in second is the Pittsburgh Steelers at 11-6. Look, Kenny Pickett down the stretch won 7 of 9, right? So he had the concussion thing, got healthy, wins 7 of his last 9. There are games where he's calling his own plays on 2-minute drives in Baltimore in prime time.
As a rookie,
leading his team to victory. I think Pickens is going to be a lot better. I think the offensive line is vastly improved. Isaac Seumalo is a top 10 guard in the league. I really, really like Broderick Jones on at the tackle position. So it's going to be a much better offensive line. He's going to have more time to throw. Najee's going to have more running lanes. He's going to have better weapons. I think Allen Robinson is a sneaky good pickup. Just because he didn't work in LA doesn't mean he can't work elsewhere. Fit is very important in the NFL.
Yeah.
I think him being able to slide in as a very, very sly, nice, cunning veteran wide receiver in the number 3 receiver spot, not a lot of pressure. I think he's going to thrive. I think Pat Freiermuth is a top 5 tight end in the league.
Yeah.
I think Darnell Washington, the new tight end, is going to be
Hell
very,
of an
very good
addition.
as well.
Hell of an addition.
Good end line blocker. So, and then of course you're going to have the defense. I think TJ Watt has the argument to be defensive player of the year for the entire league,
Then,
not
of
just
course,
this
you have,
division.
You have Minka too.
Minka's fantastic. I worry a little bit about the defensive backs, but I think they'll be serviceable enough given our pass rush is going to be lethal.
Right.
I think 11-6 feels right.
And seeing how Joey Porter Jr. comes into his own too as well.
Yeah, who knows? He could end up being a lockdown guy. He's got the length to do it. He's long, rangy type DB.
So I like the structure of the team. I like the way the roster's set up. Now, the only thing that makes me doubt the Steelers at this point is the offensive play calling. Will Matt Canada throw another freaking goose egg this year?
I'm not going to tell you that it's not likely because I saw a tweet. It was like, "Who's stopping this offense?" and it listed all our offensive pieces. And you're like, "That's a good point." Somebody quote tweeted and said, "Matt Canada." Like,
yeah,
like it's a good point. Like, depending on how we call plays, how we sequence things, there is a potential for this offense to not reach its full potential.
Well, you never want your offensive coordinator to be your limiting factor, right?
I think he is, though.
And I think he is too. And you put the pieces together in any other organization. What is always the common denominator between very successful teams? That's an offensive genius, right? You have to have a very, very good offensive game plan. And I just feel like that's where they kind of fall short. Now, I would love to see them kind of, start to pick things up this year. Yeah. And I think the additions that they've gotten, right, to bolster the offensive line a little bit.
They're going to help.
And the additions in the weapons room, I think will really, really help.
I agree. You mentioned offensive, firepower, if you will. I think the Bengals have just that. They're going to be 13-4 this year.
Yeah,
I think Joe Burrow has a legitimate argument for MVP, although I love Mahomes. Joe Burrow has a legitimate argument. Jamar Chase could very, very well be Offensive Player of the Year. I think Mixon is a very, very serviceable back. I don't love their offensive line, but they do get Orlando Brown from the Chiefs at left tackle, so there's at least a strong point there. And we talked about Zach Taylor, and we'll get to him in a little bit. But I think he is a budding, young, superstar level offensive coach. I mean, what has he been able to do to integrate all the pieces that are in that system to where everybody feels like they could be a number 1 receiver on any given night?
Yeah.
And I think that also comes down to Burrow as well, being able to sprinkle the football around. Defense is good, not great. They have a good safety I like. I'm sorry, he's actually in Atlanta now. But they do have young pieces in the secondary that I do like. It depends. Can they pop? Maybe. If they do, this could be a 15-win team. Like, if they pop, they could be a really, really, unstoppable team. I think 13-4 feels about right. Split with the Steelers, lose a couple tough games against, the Niners, teams like that. But I think they're going to be a very good football team. Burrow, MVP caliber player. Bengals at 13-4.
I agree with it. I like it.
Let's run back through. Bengals at the top, 13-4. Steelers at 11-6. The Ravens at 10-7, and of course the basement dwelling Browns at 7-10. Got to poke the ribs in Cleveland there. But that is the AFC North predictions. Without further ado, let's go ahead and do the AFC North superlatives.
All right, yeah, so the best players from the AFC North are going to do the superlatives. So we always do MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Breakout Player, and the coach of the division. So let's get right into it.
We always start with MVP. Kind of weird. We always start, I feel like, in reverse for lists and stuff. But for the superlatives, we just jump right in. We go MVP.
I feel like you have to do MVP first. It gets the best guy out of the way, and then from there they fall into place.
Yeah, I would agree. So MVP, I don't think there's going to be a ton of debate here. Joe Burrow, I think most people would say he's the second best quarterback in the league. If you have him any lower than 5, I can't talk to you. He's in my eyes, the second best quarterback.
Yeah.
I think the precision, the situational awareness, the situational excellence of Joe Burrow is fantastic. Probably the most accurate quarterback in the football right now. There's an argument for Mahomes just because of how accurate he can be outside of the pocket extending plays. But I think within the structure of an offense, Joe Burrow is one of the most precise passers we've ever seen, and especially in the league today, and especially in this division. And also, what's Cincinnati without him? We talk about value a lot on this show.
Yeah.
What is Cincinnati without him? We've seen him without him. They're not good. You know what I mean? I know Jamar Chase has helped that as well. T. Higgins, he has helped. I'm not saying that. But, think about Andy Dalton, right? He was there before him. Put Andy Dalton on this roster. Could they win 8-9 games? Maybe. Are they 13 wins and arguably one of the top 3 teams in terms of Super Bowl odds? No.
Exactly. So, and then I try to think of somebody else that could fit this mold. The only one that I really get close with is Lamar Jackson, just because you know how much he can change, the entire landscape. You good?
Yeah, we're good.
But outside of that, like, you look at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh doesn't have a guy that, like, they really, really rely on. And then you have Cleveland. I mean, you can't lean on anybody there.
You don't even know what you're getting with Deshaun this year.
You can take Kenny Pickett out. We've seen Pittsburgh without their number one guy. They're still going to be an above 500 team.
Right. And I mean, you could argue T.J. Watt, like they win like 80% of the games when he plays, but I don't think he's at as much of a valuable position as Burrow.
Yeah.
All right, offensive player of the year, you mentioned Lamar Jackson. I think Lamar fits here because I think value-wise, there's other players that could fit that scheme that are mobile quarterbacks that could still win, but I don't think they'll be as productive as Lamar, and I think that's where the offensive player of the year thing comes into play, right? The production that Lamar is going to put up is unprecedented. He's going to be able to probably run for 800 yards, throw for another 3,000, a lot of touchdowns, right? He's dynamic, fun. That's kind of fits the bill for an offensive player of the year. Like
Right.
Cooper Kupp, for example, as a wide receiver. Dynamic, fun, productive, right? That's kind of what an offensive player of the year is. I think that's what Lamar is.
For sure.
Our defensive player of the year, let's go with T.J. Watt. Again, we mentioned him for MVP, but the way he's able to wreck games. I mean, think about week 1 against Cincinnati. I know Burrow's coming off surgery, but still, like the way he was able to disrupt the game week 1 against arguably one of the best teams in football.
Yeah,
like he can wreck games. When he plays, they win 80-something% of the games. Like he is a game wrecker. I think the best edge rusher in the league. Is there a lot of debate? I think Nick Bosa's up there.
Nick Bosa would be up there, but I mean, somebody that changes the game on a week-to-week basis. I mean, we've seen him do it against Cleveland. We've seen him do it against Cincinnati. You name the team that we've played. Whenever TJ Watt's in there, the game is 100% different just because of him.
And I think he also, it's interesting because Pittsburgh's wart, in a sense, is their defensive backfield.
Yeah.
Right? Outside of Minka, they don't have a ton of cover guys. We don't know what Joey Porter is yet. But with the pass rush, you don't need to cover for 6-7 seconds. How about, could you give me 2.5? Because by then, Highsmith or TJ Watt are going to be there, so TJ lands at DPOY. I think he'll lead the league in sacks.
Yeah, he's so valuable.
Let's go with another Steeler here for Breakout Player of the Year. Now, we floated back and forth George Pickens.
Between two Steelers, yeah.
And Kenny Pickett. I do like Pickens. I don't want to say he already broke out, but I don't think it would be as much of a surprise if he was like top 5 in the league in receiving. I think it would be a fairly big shock if Kenny Pickett comes out and is a top 7 quarterback. I do. Like, I think he's good. He's talented. People saw flashes
even top
last
10.
year. Yeah, people saw flashes last year, but I think he's going to take such a large step forward. I do think he's going to end up somewhere around 8 to 10 in terms of the best quarterbacks in the league, and I think that's a pretty big step. I think he was somewhere around 18 to 20 last year.
Yeah.
So if he could bump up 10 spots, that's insane.
Yeah.
Right? That's worthy of a Breakout Player of the Year.
And you can see it, like you can see it coming down the line too. I mean, the end of last season was super impressive, right? The writing's on the wall for Kenny Pickett to really take over and be really good in the system. So this season, I think, is the perfect time, right? Because you have the weapons. Your offensive line is getting better. The team around you is getting built up. So, I mean, it's not like it's totally reliant on you. And you have a really good run game if that offensive line can do what we think it's going to do.
And
Clear some more
Najee,
holes for Najee.
Jalen Warren.
Yeah. So
backfield.
if they can take pressure off of Pickett, and Pickett doesn't have to drop back 50, 55 times a game, and he doesn't feel too much of the pressure, I think he's going to be really, really good.
Also, something worth noting that the early schedule is fairly favorable for Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Again, you get the Niners early when they don't know who their quarterback is, and they generally start slow. I think we had them at like 6-1 or something like that, like 7-0. Like they're going to start out strong, and that's huge for a rookie quarterback. So, Kenny Pickett, Breakout Player of the Year.
Yeah.
Coach of the Year, we've already talked a lot about him, but Zach Taylor. I think he kind of gets overshadowed because Burrow is so good, but there you have to balance how good your quarterback is. You know, your wide receivers, you got to spread the ball around, right? Offensive schemes, culture, right? You'd think Cincinnati was a losing culture. I know a lot of that is Joe Burrow. A lot of that is the head coach.
Yeah.
A ton of that. And to be able to go and to measure how good a coach is, how good is he against an Andy Reid? How good is he against Belichick, right?
And he wins those big games.
He's like, what, I think either 2-1 or 2-2 against Andy Reid. Like, he competes against those top-level coaches. So that tells me he can. I hate, this is going to sound so weird. He can, like, jive with the best of them in terms of the coaches. Like, he can X and O just as good as some of the top coaches in football. Because when he's matched up against them, he competes.
Yeah, you have a point.
I don't think it's crazy.
You look at the matchups. They called Arrowhead Stadium Burrowhead for a while.
I mean, it didn't work out this past year, but I mean, they did beat them en route to the Super Bowl at Arrowhead.
Yeah, so I mean, look, to be able to completely turn a franchise on its ear that quickly.
Yeah, and like I said, I know Burrow helped, but like that, there's so much coaching there as well.
Yeah, do you think Kenny Pickett would be this good without a Mike Tomlin?
Absolutely not.
Exactly.
Like, Mahomes without Reed?
It matters where you land, and I think we've talked about that a lot, right? You could put the best college prospect into a really, really crappy situation, and it's not going to look great, no matter how good the quarterback is. So the culture built by Zach Taylor, very, very good. Lands him Coach of the Year.
I mean, we talked about those first-round busts. We have a little bit of time, so we can kind of go on a segue, but like E.J. Manuel, Buffalo was nothing when E.J. Manuel was out there, right? Josh Rosen in Arizona, they were Sam Darnold in New York.
Bad.
Right? Like Dwayne Haskins in Washington, we just saw, their owner sold. He's terrible. Zach Wilson in New York. Justin Fields in Chicago, right?
Mark Sanchez in New York.
Mark Sanchez, right? So it matters a ton where you land. I would argue it's the vast majority of the determination for your success is where you land.
Yeah. Coach plays a huge part.
So to run back through, we got MVP Joe Burrow, Offensive Player of the Year Lamar Jackson, DPOY TJ Watt, Breakout Player of the Year Kenny Pickett, and Coach of the Year Zach Taylor for the AFC North. Guys, we did the AFC North predictions, the AFC North superlatives. Next week, what do we have?
We got the, I think we go south, so we got the NFC South.
Can't wait. Guys, don't go anywhere. We're going to talk a little bit about sports news as well as the Saquon Barkley running back dilemma. I feel like we've been talking about it a lot recently, but there is, more developments in that story, so don't go anywhere.
Let's go. Third segment of the issue on July 27th. Another good segment here for you. We get the news, and we have our conversation on Saquon Barkley and the Giants and the running back contracts and everything that's been going on with that. Guys, if you haven't, go check out theissuesports.com in the meantime. All the social medias, everything. You're going to want to follow because there's a lot of stuff coming out with the new podcast, Players Only Podcast, next week, August 1st. So make sure you're subscribed everywhere. Make sure you're following all of the outlets so that you don't miss out on any of the news and all the new stuff that is going to drop. In the meantime, also, go sign up for the newsletter so you get some information a little earlier, right? I know our first guest for Players Only will be announced on the newsletter before we announce it on the show. So go check that out early if you want to.
Yeah. Like this past newsletter that was just sent out.
Yes.
So if you're subscribed, you would know. But if you can still subscribe, you can still see the previous ones. It's online, right? We have it on the website?
Yes, it'll be good.
Perfect. So just go check out the website. You'll be able to see it. Subscribe so you always are up to date.
Absolutely. It's the best way to be here. But yeah, we got the news. A lot of stories breaking all around the sports world. I know you kind of hinted at that we have a soccer story, which is kind of different.
Yeah, let's just start with that then. Get it out of the way.
Yeah, let's go.
Story number one here. Kylian Mbappe, I don't know how you pronounce it, whatever. Plays for Paris Saint-Germain. I don't know what league that's in. There's about 7 different ones in Europe. Confuses the ever-living. I don't understand any of it. But either way, he was offered $776 million for one singular year, one season, to play for a team in Saudi Arabia, like Al Hilal or something like that. I don't know. I'm probably butchering that as well. But the main focal point is, yes, you heard that right, $776 million. Also, that doesn't even include the buyout for his contract in Paris, which is $332 million. So it's basically a $1 billion offer for Mbappe for one singular year. I don't know how much this Saudi Arabia is like bringing in, but is it really going to counteract the $1 billion to one player? Like, are they still going to be able to make revenue? Like,
look, I was about to say,
are they going to make a profit?
I don't know. I was about to say, how much money does this freaking place have?
So much.
That you can just throw $1 billion at one guy for 1 year.
Look, he's a very good player, budding young superstar, is on the same like trajectory as a Messi, a Ronaldo, right? He is set to be an all-time great. That would make sense if this was like a 10-year deal for that, right?
Yeah.
1 year, $1 billion investment.
That's a ton of money.
There's just I can't see a path in which that leads to profit.
It doesn't really make sense to me.
If I'm him, I'm taking the bag, though. I don't care where.
Yeah, you're gonna accept that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're gonna accept $1 billion.
Absolutely.
I think I would instantly become a billionaire too. Yeah, that'd be cool.
For 1 year.
Yeah.
1 year. I'm in. Story number 2 here. This actually, you're going to see the perspective of all the different sports and the contracts here, because story number 2 here is Trayvon Diggs signs a 5-year, $97 million contract.
And even that is like crazy money.
That's still his kids will be set.
Yeah, but like when you compare that to a $1 billion soccer contract.
Yeah, it's a little bit small. It just feels. And the next story is also another contract that's going to sound crazy too. But Trayvon Diggs, good corner. Yeah. Good corner. I think he's a little bit overhyped. He's a little bit boom or bust, pick or get burned type corner. But again, if I'm getting 6 to 7 picks a year, I don't mind paying for that. That's fine. He's still a top 10 corner in the league.
It's still a lot of money to shell out to
a defensive player.
Defensive position, though.
I do think DB is a very, very valuable defensive. I think it's edge rusher and DB. Those are the 2 valuable positions.
Yeah, but I mean, like, we talked about it with safety contracts before, too. Like, you shouldn't go spend a ton of money on guys like that.
Yeah, I would say safety's less valuable, though, but I get what you mean.
Look how quick Richard Sherman fell off.
Yeah, Patrick Peterson fell off pretty quick. I'm not saying it's crazy. He is still young, so I do think he'll be fine. I don't hate the contract. I do think it's a lot of money. I think it's weird when you pay Dak a ton of money. Trayvon Diggs is getting paid a ton. Tyron Smith is getting paid a lot. Zach Martin wants
the rest of your money going to go?
Zach Martin, the guard, wants a ton of money. Mike is going to need to get paid soon. So they're in a bit of a
I would value Micah over Trayvon.
It feels almost like the Rams when they went all in on that Super Bowl and they got it and then they had to kind of rip it down to the studs.
Yeah, but they also went out and got a really good quarterback, I don't think Dak's the guy.
And they won a Super Bowl. I don't foresee Dallas winning a Super Bowl with this roster.
Hell, I don't even.
They're going all in for like the division.
I don't even see them getting to an NFC Championship game.
I don't see them getting out of wild card weekend, depending on who their matchup is.
Yeah, I mean it depends who sneaks in.
Yeah,
and what they do.
Because they'll probably be like a. But they're going to be a wild card team. Philly's going to win.
They're not going to beat Philly.
So they're going to be like a 5 seed probably, which means you'll get the 4, which, granted, that could be like New Orleans.
Or 49ers.
No, the 49ers are probably going to be like 2 or 3.
You think?
Yeah.
I don't know, with no quarterback.
Brock Purdy got cleared for training camp. Again, that doesn't mean he's going to be ready to go perfectly healthy, but he got cleared.
Either way, it's interesting.
It's interesting. All right, story number 3 here. Jaylen Brown, the Celtics wing, gets 5 years, $304 million. So same amount of time, like triple the money. $304 million. It's the largest contract in NBA history. I mean, dude, to shoot a basketball, I'm in. Now, he's a good two-way player. He could defend. He could slash. Good shooter. Not great with the handles. Not a great distributor. But again, he's a wing. Doesn't need to. Him and Jason Tatum are a very good 1-2 punch. I'm not a huge Celtics fan. I do think that they need a point guard to facilitate to those 2 wings. So I think that's what they're missing. So if they can go out and get a good point guard, I think they'll be fine. I thought Chris Paul would have fit well there. Of course, he's in Golden State now. But Jaylen Brown, 5 for 304. Now, in the NBA, it works a little bit differently where depending on how many years into like your rookie deal you are and how your production is in terms of like all pros and points per game, all-star games, like that dictates what bracket you're in. So he was in like the Supermax bracket.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a predetermined offer in a sense. Like there's like a bracket of how much you could pay him. So it's like 5 years for, I don't know, anywhere between like 290 and 310 or something like that. There's like a set bracket that you need to be within. It's called the Supermax. There's a max deal, Supermax deal, veterans minimum. Like there's a bunch of different brackets. So this was kind of predetermined. They eventually ink it. Good for Jaylen Brown. I guess good for the Celtics. A lot of money. Not sure I'd be comfortable paying it, but he's a good player.
It's a lot to shell out.
It is a lot to shell out. A little college football story here. Story number 4. Jim Harbaugh suspended for the first 4 games of the Michigan football season for lying to investigators about the investigation for like recruiting violations. Again, so the recruiting violations weren't anything like too crazy. Like they're not buying like naked women. They're not buying like cars. Like they're not doing anything too crazy. Like I think it was, he bought him like another dinner. I don't know. Like it was a very like minute. Okay, just start making noise. That's fine. It was a very like minute infraction. So for the amount of like small infraction it was, for then it to turn into 4-game suspension seems a little bit crazy to me. Do you think it affects the season at all for them?
No.
I don't think it does either. I think they're more talented than almost every team that they're going to play, so I don't think it's going to matter a ton.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. College sports in general, they have so many like guidelines to follow with recruiting. I mean, I know when I was going through it with baseball, you have like the quiet period where you're not allowed to talk to anybody. You can't have any visits. You can't do any of that. So maybe there was a violation there, like small stuff.
Right.
But like it's not like anything crazy.
At the end of the day, I don't think it's going to matter, right? You're going to be in your first couple games of conference play. I don't know the schedule in front of me, but I don't think they play anybody like too crazy.
Here, I'll look it up. We got time.
I feel like it's probably like a Northwestern. You're probably going to get like maybe a Rutgers in there. Like I don't foresee it being anything that they can't. It's not for any of the Ohio State games. I don't think Iowa's in there.
Okay, yeah, it's East Carolina.
Okay, they're fine.
UNLV.
They'll be okay.
Bowling Green.
They'll be okay.
And Rutgers.
Yeah, they're fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, a Rutgers, yeah.
Even after he gets back, he has 2 more warm-up games, Nebraska and Minnesota.
Yeah, he's fine.
Yeah,
they're going to be fine. I don't think it affects him at all. I guess it's noise, but that, again, I don't think that matters. Michigan will be just fine.
Yeah, they'll be all right. All right, now it's time to talk about a spot where there's a ton of noise in the NFL and this whole running back situation. So Saquon Barkley gets paid, $11 million for this year?
Yeah, so Saquon signs, again, the 1 year, so it's the same, I guess, amount of years that the franchise tag would be. It's $1 million above. The franchise tag was set to pay him like 10.1 or something like that.
Yeah.
So now it'll be 11, so it's about $1 million more. I mean, good for him. Here's, again, yet another cautionary tale for running backs to be very careful in negotiations and think about what the offer that you're getting is. So Saquon was offered, I think it was either 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Or, I'm sorry, 3 or 4 years for $12 million a year. So it's more long-term and more money on a yearly basis by the Giants before the deadline, of course, where he is then franchise tagged or allowed to negotiate the one singular year, right? Le'Veon Bell did the same thing, said, I can go get more money here. He sat out, then has to take less money, was never the same, out of the league. Like, it's not a guarantee that if you sit out or if you try to negotiate and, they said $12 million, I'm thinking more like 15. It's like, dude, you're... Like it's first of all, it's $1 or $2 million, and I know that's very easy for me to say who's never been offered $10 or $12 million, right? But at the end of the day, you have to look out if you're going to preach about long-term security this, long-term security that. Like you had the long-term security option there. Now you're going to settle for a 1-year deal at less annual value. Like it doesn't make be very careful. That first or second offer that you're getting from that team might be the best offer you're going to get. It was for Le'Veon Bell, right? And now it is for Saquon Barkley, and be very careful about this whole, I'll sit out if I have to. What'd it get you? $1 million. No stability. When you could have 4 years of stability, $12 million a year, go out and be a baller. You know where you're living. You know where you're playing. There's security. There's assurance. There's certainty. There's cost certainty in there. There are plenty of benefits to taking that initial 4-year, whatever $1 million, 12 a year deal and being secure, as opposed to, I'll take 15, but for less guaranteed money and this and that. It's like, you're not always going to get things your way. It's called a negotiation for a reason. And I think that offer that he got from the Giants was going to be the best offer that he'll ever get. And I do think he's going to end up regretting it.
Yeah, I mean, my thing is you complained and then staged this whole thing, and all these running backs lost their minds just for you to get $1 million for 1 year. It just seems like, the ends don't justify the means in this. At least if you're going to stage this whole thing, you better be damn sure you're going to get way more value than you were under the franchise tag. Getting an extra $1 million, like you said before we started, that's taxes. At the end of the day, you're pretty much just making $10 million again.
Yeah. Now again, you could say, 10, he'd be making 9. Okay, fine. It's $1 million.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not saying that I would not be like, oh my God, it's $1 million. Trust me, if somebody came in with $1 million, I'd be like, dude, I'll take it. I don't care what I have to do. But when you've already made 40 and you have another 10 or 9 or 11 coming, what's the difference in that? You know what I mean?
And then you have to look into, from the Giants' perspective, is he worth, I understand he's a great running back, but is he worth shelling out a ton of money for? And I think they're showing us that they're thinking no. I mean, we know how up and down the position of running back can be, especially even if you have a guy that is fantastic, top of the league, very good, performing above expectations for 2, 3, 4 seasons. And then what happens? They quickly drop off.
Show me the second running back contract that contributes to winning in the NFL. Please show me the contract. You could say Christian McCaffrey hasn't won squat, and that was also signed by a bad organization. Let's throw that out there in Carolina.
And then you can look at the Zeke contract too, which was really bad.
Derrick Henry, I'm sure he's wildly productive. I'm sure they love him in the building. What have they won with him? Nothing. Let me help you out. Nothing. Like, we have time. This is kind of like one of those segments where we can kind of freelance a little bit. Let's go like last 15 Super Bowl champions, right? I think that makes sense. Let's go last 10 because the league has changed a lot in 10 years. We usually use 10 as like kind of our benchmark.
Yeah, it's a pretty solid number.
Last 10 Super Bowl champions right there. Pops up. Okay, let's see here. NFL history, Super Bowl winners. Now, this is going to give them all to me, but that's fine. So, 2013 was Baltimore. Can you name their running back?
No.
It was Joe Flacco. Jacoby Jones was the wide receiver. Who was carrying the football? I don't know. Seattle with Marshawn Lynch. Now, that's one that kind of makes sense a little bit. But also, that was very defensively driven. Russell Wilson was fantastic. And who did the Seahawks end up picking in terms of Russ or Marshawn? Russ. Had to work out pretty well. Okay, New England. Never paid a running back anything. Denver. Weren't paying the running back because of the Peyton Manning year. New England, again, don't pay running back. Philadelphia. I think Jay Ajayi was running the football. New England, again, don't pay the running backs. Kansas City, the revolving door of them. I think that was like Damian... No, I don't know who that was. Williams, something. Tampa Bay. Leonard Fournette was not a huge contract. Very small, team-friendly, incentive-laden. Okay, how about the Rams? Cam Akers? They did not pay him. He was on their rookie deal.
Yeah.
And finally, the Chiefs again. Again, another revolving doors, another 7th-round player.
Pacheco.
Yeah, 7th-round running back. Like, there is no precedent to say that paying your running back one out of the last 10 Super Bowl champions, that was Seattle, and they didn't even end up paying him that much afterwards, contributed to winning.
And then what happened after that one Super Bowl?
Bye, thanks for your services. He was there for a couple more years, but then they ended up, again, not winning anything.
Exactly, they didn't win once they re-signed him.
So then see ya. Like, that's how it works. Like, we know that this league is quarterback and offensive driven. Though you have to pay the quarterback. If you don't have a good quarterback, nothing's going to matter.
And you have to pay your wide receiver one. Generally.
There's no precedent to tell me that I should shell out big guaranteed money for a running back if I am looking to win a Super Bowl.
I'd sooner pay a tackle.
100% I'd pay a left tackle first. 100%.
I'd pay a center first. You're telling me you wouldn't pay a Jason Kelsey? Or
that one's close,
Marquise
but
Pouncey?
I would probably pay a center first, yes. Tight end.
I think there are way more value. I'd pay a tight end first, too.
Travis. What about
Gronk.
guard? A guard. I'd go ahead and pay a running back first.
I'd take a running back over a guard, but I think the positions, quarterback, wide receiver, especially one, wide receiver one, tackle,
center, tight end.
I'd
probably go tight end then center.
And
Doesn't
then
matter.
I would say
then running back, then guard.
Yeah, but then there's also defensive positions that I'd go.
I'm talking on offense.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, whole team here. Quarterback,
edge rusher,
wide receiver one, left tackle, DB,
center, tight end,
guard,
running back,
linebacker, or safety, linebacker, running back.
So you'd take 10 positions over the running back.
I'd probably put him above linebackers and safeties, actually.
I mean, we've seen how easy it is to just go get a dude that's quick.
Oh, it's actually okay. I'm actually let's get a formulated opinion here.
Hell, the Steelers paid Le'Veon Bell, and that didn't work out.
I'm going quarterback. I'm actually gonna go left tackle first, and then I'm gonna go edge rusher, wide receiver one, DB. Then I'll go tight end, center, running back. So that would be the 8th position I'd pay, and then I would go linebacker. Or I'd go safety, then linebacker.
Yeah.
Am I crazy?
No. I mean, like...
Did I have guard in there? I put guard somewhere in the last 3, so...
Yeah. I mean, look, it's just... It's the reality of the league. I know it sucks for the running backs, but, like, at the same time, making $10 million a year is not a bad... That's not a bad gig.
It's an open market. You get paid what you're worth what a team is willing to pay you. Fair or not, that's the reality of the situation. That's the CBA that you signed.
Yeah.
Like that's the situation.
Sorry.
Sucks to suck. Sorry, I don't know what to say.
Yeah. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's about it. Yeah.
That's all we got.
That was a lot.
Yeah, that's all we got for today. So make sure you're going to the social medias. Like I said, go subscribe, go follow wherever you can. Be on the lookout for that news. We are so excited to release this podcast that's coming out on August 1st. It's been a ton of work, and we're really happy with how it turned out. It should be very, very fascinating to see how everybody likes it and how you guys take it. So make sure you go subscribe. Players Only Podcast on YouTube. I'll throw the link in the description of the episode just so it's nice and easy to find there for you. And guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you next Thursday. And that was The Issue.